What's up, all of YouTube land? This is Bill Mack here. This is your Raw report. This is for September 12th, 2016. This is the Raw coming off the heels of SmackDown's brand pay-per-view Backlash, which I thought was a success from top to bottom. I thought it was a good card and a good match. Matches all the way down the card. So anxious to see how Raw would be to try to counteract that. Let's get right to the report. We see the show opens up with Mick Foley standing in the ring with Charlotte and Dana Brooke coming down. You know, Charlotte as their pay per view, the Clash of Champions, is within a couple weeks, and we see that they're talking about Charlotte. And you know, we've seen Charlotte talk about Dana Brooke and how she blames Dana Brooke basically for her loss last week to Bayley. You know, we've seen something going on between Dana Brooke and Charlotte the last few weeks. We've seen this little divide sort of, you know, getting between them, how Charlotte's becoming more physical and blaming Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke, you know, can't help it for whatever reason, has been, you know, an issue in the matches and whatnot. But we see them two, something happening between those two. Anyways, we see that Sasha Banks and Bayley come down to the ring. You know, Sasha's talking to Charlotte about her last week, her statement she made, and how she should feel like she should have a shot at the women's title. And then Bayley comes down, and Bayley makes her case that, hey, look, I beat you last week, so if anybody gets a shot, it should be. So then they start arguing amongst each other. Dana comes up and says, well, why don't, you know, Sasha and Bayley fight, and whoever wins will have a chance at that, which I thought was a pretty good idea. Charlotte wasn't so happy with that, and she tells Dana if she says anything else, she's going to slap the taste out of her mouth. And then that infuriates Dana Brooke, so then Dana Brooke hits Charlotte. So Mick Foley goes and makes a triple threat match that's going actually to happen as soon as he leaves the ring, and the winner of that triple threat match would take on Charlotte at the Clash of Champions for the Raw Women's title. So it was a good matchup between all three of them. You know, each one of them getting spots in with it, and the finish saw Bayley hit Dana with a Bayley to belly suplex, but then Sasha ended up breaking up that pin as she was doing it, and she ended up rolling up Bayley with a jackknife pin to end up for her getting the 1, 2, 3, and Sasha essentially becoming what we call the number one contender for the Raw Women's Championship. So she will go on to face then. She will go on to face Charlotte then at Clash of Champions for the title. Um, we've seen Bo Dallas come in. They've repackaged Bo Dallas. Bo Leaving Bo is what it's called, and you know it's like he's really nice outside of the ring, but then he gets really aggressive in the ring, kind of like the Festus character. You remember the Festus character from a few years back? I know Luke Gallows does. But you know, he would be like real quiet, and then when the match would start, the bell would ring, he would just go flip out and go off on the wrestler. Well, it's kind of like Bo. Bo's kind of quiet outside the ring, but then it becomes a point to where he ends up basically demolishing. It was just a squash match against some dude named Brandon Scott, and he ends up, you know, hitting the rolling cutter on Brandon Scott and basically squashing. So here we are, the Raw using more jobbers to get their guys over, kind of like the old days back on WCW when they used to have jobbers in matches. You'd have a face and a jobber. You would have a heel and a jobber. Then the main event of the night would be a face versus a heel. That was the only time really you saw those kinds of things. But I guess the jobbers have returned, and so you know, this is one of them. We've seen them build up over time. We've seen Nia Jax. And we've seen Braun Strowman, both all these guys getting and her and Nia Jax getting jobbers to kind of put them over rather than. I don't think that's such a bad idea, you know. But then after a while, you're like, well, wait till they get real competition. So we see how that goes in the end. But in this matchup, we see Bo Dallas gets the win over Brandon Scott. we see that earlier in the night, they were talking that Todd Phillips, because Mick Foley was talking to Kevin Owens earlier in the night about him having a match against Roman Reigns. Jericho was upset because Jericho was going to have his new best friend Kevin Owens in the highlight reel. And since Kevin Owens had a match, then he couldn't be, so he ends up getting Sami Zayn. So hence we have Chris Jericho coming out to host the highlight reel. And since Kevin Owens couldn't be it, Sami Zayn comes out. And then Jericho talks to Sami Zayn. They're going back and forth at it. And, and Jericho accuses Sami Zayn of being jealous to Kevin Owens because Kevin Owens is the Universal Champion. And Zayn tells Jericho that he used to be their idol. That was the only reason why he and Kevin Owens used to be friends, and they would go together and ride together and whatnot, was for guys like that. But he said that he was basically Kevin Owens' bitch, I guess it would say it, or the polite word would be. But, he warned Jericho that he said, you think he's your friend now? He says, he was my friend too, but he's only in it for himself. He doesn't care about your friendship. Sami Zayn was speaking from experience and trying to warn Jericho. Jericho got upset with Sami Zayn's comments, ends up hitting him with his cell phone, and he hit the code breaker on Sami Zayn and left Sami Zayn lying in the ring, and he walked away seemingly like he was happy himself. Up next is something we all don't want to see. It's the one of the best of 7 series challenge matches between Cesaro and Sheamus, and Mick Foley said that the winner of that would determine who's the best and who would get a potential future shot at the Universal title. So far it showed a replay where WWE was in London over last week, and Cesaro, which was down 3-0, come up and won the matchup, and he was now 3-1. So 3-1 was going into it. And ending of the match, Cesaro ended up basically improving to 3-2 when he went to pin Owens. When he went to pin Sheamus, the referee couldn't see in the position, and Cesaro kind of used a little bit of leverage in putting his feet against the ring post. And when he held back Sheamus, he couldn't. He basically couldn't. Sheamus couldn't kick up, so he got the 1, 2, 3, and they kind of made it seem like, well, if you're gonna try to get avoid losing, you're gonna try to win at all costs, and that's just what he does. So Cesaro improves to 3-2. My guess is they're probably going to go all 7 because Sheamus had a 3-0 lead. Now it's 3-2. So I'm seeing a potential game of 7, and nobody wants to see 7 matches between these guys. But WWE still has an intent on pushing these guys. Up next was supposed to show us a matchup between Nia Jax and Alicia Fox. And remember last week, Alicia Fox was flipped out over Nia Jax and was throwing things at her and whatnot. And this basically ended up being a no contest because, the match ended without the final bell after Nia Jax ended up putting Alicia Fox through a barricade. She took Alicia Fox and just took her by the hair and slammed her one side of the outside, and then took her by the hair, slammed her on the other side, threw her against it, and then she did like this spear-like thing through with Alicia Fox through the barricade, and basically left her lying there, and it ended up the officials had to come out, and the referees had to come out and check on her because, she slammed her pretty hard. She just took her by her and threw her on both sides. I'm like, wow, she is strong. But to grab her by the hair, that to me was something that basically just showed how really strong and how powerful Nia Jax, truly was. So we look to see that. Next up, we have New Day. New Day came out there, and they were really upset because of last week when Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson brought out the Old Day, which was supposed to be older versions of them, making fun of them. They had to Xavier Woods' old self had the little toy trumpet, and then Big E's self kind of had the big gut and everything, and the walker, and then I think it was Kofi's character had the walking stick, and so that took exception. That said, it wasn't entertainment. That was the last the 5 minutes and 37 seconds that people lost of time because they weren't entertaining. That they should leave the entertainment to them. And then we see ends up they Gallows and Anderson take exception to this. They come to ring, so it looks like we're going to have a rematch from SummerSlam when it was Gallows and Anderson taking on Kofi and Xavier Woods. So we see that Anderson ends up in this matchup pinning Woods after they hit the Magic Killer, and then the two teams both they're going to end up meeting again for the titles because this is obviously a non-title match. But this shows you that it looks like New Day's title reign may be coming close to an end because really no team has really posed a threat. And it's about time for Anderson and Gallows to have the titles. They're a good enough team that they need to have the tag titles, and it's about time for them. So it looks like we see the titles going to those guys. Up next, it shows Jinder Mahal finally, for once, having an entrance and not already in the ring. But he's supposed to be this man of peace, or he comes in peace, and he explains why he was away from WWE for so long, and he claims it was because he was trying to find peace within himself. And then, as he was talking, he was interrupted, and it was by the American Jack Swagger. The We the People comes out there, and Jinder Mahal was a back and forth match basically with Jinder Mahal, I guess, ends up getting the win. And they said that he is known as the man who comes in peace, and he ended up hitting the Cobra Clutch kind of neck breaker, if you want to call it that, on Jack Swagger. Gets the 1, 2, 3. Jack Swagger is pinned by Jinder Mahal, so Jinder Mahal gets the win. We seen earlier in a backstage segment with Cass and Enzo and the Epico brothers, the Shining Stars, and they were talking about last week. And Enzo was trying to cut a promo on Epico, and about last week and about getting the help and stuff. And so we end up having a matchup between Epico and Enzo, and Epico gets the win over Enzo with the assistance from Primo, and he ends up tripping Enzo during a mid suplex. So Epico gets the win. Shining Stars yet again get another win over them. So we look to see that matchup at Clash of the Champions, or Clash of Champions, excuse me. Take the T out. Which boils down to our final matchup of the night. This is a matchup between Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. And you remember they showed last week, Roman Reigns came out there to Kevin Owens after his matchup, and the stipulation is that if Kevin Owens wins, then it's just going to be one-on-one between Seth Rollins and himself. But, however, if Roman Reigns wins, Roman Reigns will join it and make it a triple threat. Now, through the night, mind you, Mick Foley had been telling Seth Rollins that you can't interfere in this match because there's going to be consequences to it. You can't do whatever you do. Don't interfere in this matchup. So then we see the matchup, and basically Owens was in control of the matchup. It was a really good matchup between Roman and between Owens, and it ends up that when Rollins came out and as Owens was on the outside and starts pounding on him and beating him down and jumping him from behind. And then ends up meaning that since he hits Roman Reigns, he hits Kevin Owens, it disqualifies Reigns to end up being disqualified. Owens ends up getting the win, so hence Rollins knows that means that Reigns isn't going to be able to interfere, to be a triple threat. This really infuriates Mick Foley. Mick Foley gets mad. Mick Foley gets his face, telling him that there's going to be consequences. He said, I told you time after time, I asked you a favor, don't interfere. Rollins says, look, you can't control me. You can't tell me what to do. and basically the officials and stuff, and he said, "Look, we're going to have a talk." So Foley tells Seth Rollins to go to the back. They're going to have a talk. So we see, the officials and referees lead Rollins away, and that leaves Roman Reigns in the ring. What happens is in this matchup, Mick Foley tells the referee the match is not going to end this way. So restart the match back up. So here we go. Kevin Owens isn't happy about that. But he's angry because he's already dominating Reigns now, mind you. He's outside and he keeps trying to injure Reigns' shoulder. He keeps throwing him to the ring post, to the steps, everything, and the barrier. Just keeps throwing him through everything. And he gets mad and he comes into the ring. Rusev comes out of nowhere and he ends up and Reigns hits him with a Superman punch, but that temporary distraction causes Kevin Owens to hit the pop-up power bomb. 1, 2, 3. He pins Roman Reigns and ends up ends up winning the matchup anyway. He crawls out of the ring. Rusev, after being back after a few weeks from being out, after being humiliated by Roman Reigns, he just beats Roman down in the middle of the ring and ends up putting him in the accolade and just basically until Roman can't deal with it anymore, and basically he lets him go and he just stands over him with that look on his face as Raw goes off the air. So to me, top to bottom, I thought it was a good show, decent. Can't really complain too much about it. I'm starting to think it's actually pretty good with these shows, but we will see. So I hope you enjoyed the Raw Report. Subscribe for more if you want to. Subscribe to my friend Brandon's channel. He does SmackDown Report, and check him out. So everyone, until next time, and if you like this video, like it, give it a thumbs up. Give me a comments if you want to see something. Dealing with wrestling, I'll do my best and put more content on for you. So until next time, this is Bill Mack, and I am out of here.